You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's talk about UK polls. And United Kingdom is just days away from the general election that could see the Conservative Party out of power for the first time in 14 years. Polls suggest Labour Party leader Keir Starmer is likely to be the country's next Prime Minister after the 4th of July vote. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
All of the polls currently point in one direction ahead of the UK's election.
So it looks at the moment as if Labour will win and win easily.
That's not to say a win is guaranteed, but Rishi Sunak's Conservatives, in power in one form or another for 14 years, have struggled to eat into the Labour polling lead. So in the days after the election, Keir Starmer could be forming a government with a significant majority here at Parliament. That would bring huge opportunities for the centre-left party, but also huge challenges. After the COVID-19 pandemic, a war in Europe, a cost of living crisis, Britain's finances are creaking.
Well, the big issues facing the government that takes office on the 5th of July is that there are public service improvements needed in the UK, health service, railways, parts of the education system. Economic growth in the UK has been sluggish all the way back to 2008, in fact.
If Labour returns to power, the centre-left party's foreign policy is likely to include quite a lot of continuity with recent years. Relations with India will be a key focus.
We think so. I mean, look, India is the most exciting economic story in the world right now. We are in the middle of the Indian decade, at the start of the Indian century. And I think whoever's in power in the UK will recognise that and want to prioritise the relationship with India.
The Conservatives have also struggled with the rise of the right-wing Reform Party, which promises tougher action on immigration. Reform hopes to win the seaside seat of Clacton on the English south coast. Whatever happens there and elsewhere, it's already clear the makeup of the House of Commons will be very different. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
And my colleague Ollie Barrett joins us live from London on UK Snap polls. Ollie, we saw that report, very comprehensive the way you put it. But so which means that Rishi Sunak is in a tight spot now. And is it just a matter of time if one has to go by the popular polls of polls?
It looks very difficult now, Sakal, indeed, for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, because time really is running out. Just a few days to go, and what he's been searching for throughout this election campaign is something to change the momentum. A big moment here, a big moment there that could have helped him claw back some of that huge ground in the polls, suggesting that Labour are around 20 points ahead when it comes to the national vote share that we might see on July the 4th and results day into July the 5th. And it just hasn't happened for him yet. Nothing has really shifted the polls at all. And so with just 5 days to go now until election day, as I say, time is really running out for some big thing to come along that changes the calculus in terms of what we expect out of that election.
What are the reasons you would like to put in attributing to Starmer's popularity and the lead he has reportedly taken on Sunak? And if at all there happens to be a change of guard, that's going to be unprecedented and historical, where we would get to see the Conservatives out of power for more than a decade.
The interesting thing about Keir Starmer is that although his Labour Party are way ahead in the polls, he is not very popular, actually. He could become one of the prime ministers with the lowest popularity rating on taking office. There is a sense in this election that the voters don't particularly like, it seems, any of the leaders that are out on the campaign trail very much at all. And so that will be a challenge for Keir Starmer if he does become the Prime Minister, to try and boost his own popularity. And that clearly would come down, you would assume, partly to how he performs in government. When it comes to why Labour is much more popular at the moment than the Conservatives, according to all of the polling. I think there are lots of reasons for that. Labour would tell you that it's because of the record of the Conservatives. They would say that the economic record, the record on the National Health Service, the record on COVID-19, the record when it comes to illegal immigration, the Labour Party would say the Conservatives just haven't been delivering. There have been chaotic episodes, changes of Prime Minister, one after another, and Labour would say that is why the Conservatives are falling when it comes to national popularity. I think it's also worth saying that this often happens in the British political landscape when you've had a party in power for quite a long period of time in one form or another. Often the voters just get tired of that party, they get fatigued, they get fed up, and they decide that it's time for a change. We saw that again with the Labour Party after 13 years of power in 2010, and that change over to the Conservatives at that point.
So in a sense, the anti-incumbency is something which kicks in. Ollie, lastly now, so the other interesting thing that you pointed out, the elections in UK, at least these elections, are not revolving or contested around the personality cult of the ruling and the opposition, but more or less is on the report card and the policies, and this time around the promises floated by Labour vis-a-vis the performance of Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it. It's a really interesting question because Rishi Sunak and his aides, when he called the election, they'd been saying for months, and they would say this to you privately, look, we think that when the election is called, Rishi Sunak's really good at this stuff. He's really good at debates. He's really good at getting out and meeting people. He'll be able to convince the British people and turn the polling around. And they wanted a presidential-style leadership campaign. It just hasn't worked out for the Conservatives. And one of the other fascinating elements to the Conservative campaign nationally is that a lot of candidates standing for the Conservatives in individual constituencies up and down the country, their campaign literature, their posters, their leaflets, the things that they are saying to voters on the doorsteps don't involve Rishi Sunak. In fact, many of them have been trying not to mention him at all and distancing themselves from the Conservative Party leadership, and instead trying to point to their own qualities in their constituencies. And so the presidential style campaign that we thought we might see from Labour and the Conservatives, in a sense, hasn't really been what we expected.
Okay, we'll have to just wait and watch how this really pans out from here. But such a pleasure talking to you as always. Ollie Barrett joining us live from London. Thank you. And now let's shift our focus to developments in Russia, where latest